Hey, good evening, everyone. First of all, a very happy Dasara to you. Welcome to the 17th episode of Employee Engagement Live. I'm Shrikant Acharya from offineeds.com, and in this episode, I'm going to be interviewing somebody very ordinary, or should I say extraordinary. We'll find out. But before I get there, let's talk a little bit about why I do this show and what we talk about. So Employee Engagement Live is really an initiative to help leaders, HR professionals from HR, corporate communication, admin, and facility who would like to improve the quality of employee engagement within their organization. Whether you're a small organization, a medium-sized organization, or a large organization, employee engagement is the key. But with remote working, with the pandemic, with the work from home kind of a situation, employee engagement has become that much more challenging, and that's why I bring in a seasoned professional, somebody who's an expert, who's been working in different kinds of organizations, different kinds of situations for several years now, and ask them questions about their ideas, philosophies, strategies, and experiences with employee engagement. With that, let me welcome today's speaker. Today, we have Ketan Krishna, who is an author, who's a speaker, and who's a coach. He's written a book called Extraordinary. He's currently working as the head of human resources at Rentomojo and has got about 15 years of experience in HR, and he's worked across different companies, including IDFC, including Magma FinCorp, including Utsav Fashion, and including Aditya Birla Retail, and and that's about 15 years of HR experience across all kinds of different kinds of sectors, I would say. What I find most fascinating about Ketan is his approach to work and life and his ideas about leadership. So, with that said, please welcome Ketan Krishna. Hi, Ketan. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Shrikant. Thank you so much for having me here and wishing you and everybody who is watching this happy Durga Puja and Dashera. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Ketan. So let me remind the audience that this is going to be about 35 to 40 minutes of shows, and it's going to be really interesting. We're going to be speaking about a lot of things, employee engagement and leadership, right? So keep your pen and paper ready, make notes, and if you have any questions, I'll open it up so that you can ask those questions, and I'll point it to Ketan towards the end of the show. So with that, Ketan, let me ask the first question that I ask every person who comes to my show. What, according to you, is employee engagement?
Yeah. So this is a topic that I'm still trying to discover and get more about. But I'll tell you more from my experience because before being an HR professional or a say a manager or a senior manager, I've always been an employee first, right? And I'll always be an employee. In my 15 years of journey, I had close to about 23, 24 bosses. That's something I know is unusual, but I had about 24 bosses across four companies. Now, something interesting used to happen, and because I worked with startups where the rate of change of bosses is very high, either they move into another role or they move out, or I had to move into another role or another place.
Mm.
Every time a change used to happen, be it the company that I was changing or the manager that was changing, my engagement used to fluctuate in terms of my, that feeling of sense of belonging and being there used to fluctuate a lot. What I did is I looked at the places or the moments where I believe I was mostly engaged or super engaged, I would say. The three things that I personally believe matters. Number one, am I being myself every single day to my work or my workplace? I think that was the first thing that I discovered was and is the first and the foundational part of engagement. Do I get to be who am I at my workplace?
Mm.
The second thing that I learned and I realized and I saw a pattern was, do I get to do my best every single day? Are my strengths being used? Am I being used for what I could do? I think that came as very important second segment when I look at my engagement patterns, my self assessment. And the third is am I aligned to the larger vision of the organization? Is the purpose making sense for me? Whatever I'm doing, is it adding to something far more bigger and meaningful? I think when I
Mm.
look back, these are the three things that mattered to me as an employee.
Right.
And this is what I believe. While I've fortunately worked very close with on the Gallup model or the Great Places to Work model, or we're working with another technology partner called Culture Monkey here. Uh,
Mm.
these are different ways and tools which helps organizations become better. But at the core, if I keep those theories aside, and I'm a
Mm.
firm believer in all those practices, right? Be it Great Places to Work or Gallup or what Culture Monkey is doing. But for me as an employee, these are the three principles that I find to be the most valuable, and this is what to me is the holy grail of the word called engagement that I've discovered so far.
Awesome. Love it. Are you being yourself? Are you being your best? And what you're doing, is it aligned to, is it helping serve a bigger purpose? Is it kind of
Absolutely.
aligned to your philosophies, right? Awesome. So we'll take it there. We'll kind of pursue the interview with those questions. But before that, I'm really, really curious to talk about your book and to talk about your LinkedIn profile status, right? So it says, at the ordinary guy with extraordinary dreams, and your book says extraordinary, right? I've ordered the book, it's not yet come, I'm eager to read it, and it's one of those few books which I've seen, it's got about 50 reviews, and all 50 reviews are 5 stars. Very rare for that to happen. So guys, in case you're watching this and in case you're wondering, please go to Amazon and search for this book. It's called Extraordinary, and you can search by the author Ketan Krishna, and you will be impressed by the reviews, and you will want to get your hands on that. So please do that. And Ketan, you can tell us a little bit about your belief about this ordinary, extraordinary thing, and a little bit about the book.
Huh, thank you for asking that, and thank you for purchasing the book. I'm certain it will help you. And yes, people have been kind. I think people who access or who read the book, they definitely found some value in that. Uh, a little bit about me will help you understand why of this book and what actually can somebody expect from it.
Mm.
Uh, I come from a very small town. I've seen life ordinary at best, where when it comes to infrastructure, education, the quality of information, it was very limited. It's a very, very
Mm.
small town. I think it just came on Google a few years back. This is what I can tell you about that part of the life. The second dimension of my life has been initially, and till the time I was about to hit my graduation. I've been the guy who has been on the other side of the stage, clapping for my friends and my colleagues and my family members when they would excel, they would do well, they would get some award and recognition. I
Mm.
used to always be on the other side and cheer and clap for them. I had nothing that I could, sail through and take through, saying that okay, this makes me one of the best in whatever zone or the area that I was. And I thought this is how life is supposed to be. That's where, and I thought I'm an ordinary guy. At best, I would have a 9 to 5 job, which will pay me enough to pay my electricity bill and then take care of my family, get my kids educated, and maybe buy a car if things are working well. So that's what I anticipated about life. And with in my part of the country, there were only three job opportunities or career opportunities: doctor, engineer, or UPSC. UPSC was straight out of window for me. Between engineer and a doctor, I somehow said, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. So with that dream, I land up in Delhi in 1999, and I gave 1 year of to prepare well and gave my MBBS entrance exams, and I couldn't crack that exam. I didn't become a doctor. So I had a choice to make: do I give it another year or do I do something else? So I gave it another year, and after the last paper of the second year, I knew I was not going to be a doctor again. And it was competitive, right? About 4 5 lakh people would apply, some 3,000 seats. Typically, if you see, that's 1 to 2% of conversion.
Mm.
And somebody who used to think that I'm an ordinary guy, how will ever I crack that exam? I think that was always there in my head.
Mm.
And I'm walking towards my PG. I reach my PG, and I had an uncle of mine. I would call him the best and probably the second coach that I had in my life. He himself was a doctor. He was a CBSE PMT rank holder, and he used to crack any competitive exam like this.
Mm.
So I come home, and he asked me, "So, are you going to be a doctor?" And I don't know what happened. For 10 minutes, I just got into a huge excuse mode. how competitive the world is, how unfair the world is, why there are so limited seats. I even told him that there were few questions that were wrong because nobody would get a copy of the question paper, right? So that was an easy claim. Things like the invigilator had a watch which was malfunctioning. I needed 10 minutes. My eyes. I just got into every possible thing that my mind was telling why I did not
Right.
clear that exam. And I had no idea that what was coming next was going to shift my life, and that I would say was the most significant turning point in my life. He heard me, and that's what great coaches do. He heard me, and with a smile, he asked me a question. He said, Ketan, how many seats did you need? I said, one. He said, go ahead and get it. Why are you bothered about everything else outside your circle of influence, which is
Mm,
troubling you, which is impacting you, and which you can't do anything about?
mm,
Now, that was like, it hit me hard. I don't know what happened, and I didn't realize it that it rewired something in me.
mm.
3 years later, after this incident, I didn't pursue my MBBS, but 3 years later, I was the Delhi University gold medalist.
Okay, awesome,
I got through MSc in various colleges of India on merit,
awesome.
right?
Mm.
I changed my line. I got through one of the best B schools in India. Now, the
Yeah,
same guy, not that my talents changed, my competencies changed, but the way I started to look, the way
yeah.
I started to think, it changed my results. And here is what I started to believe in. I changed, the way I started to look at the world changed, and so did my
Mm.
results.
Right.
This helped. This continues to help. Post this, had a phenomenal 15 years of career, a lot of failures, a lot of successes. I'm grateful. I think I can only tell that I'm grateful. I've worked with brilliant people, brilliant organizations, got to do a lot of things that I've been really passionate about. And a few years back, I decided to hire a coach for myself.
Mm,
And that was a moment I realized this ordinary thing was still clinging on to me.
mm,
Uh, One challenge that I worked with my coach was that, and I had an inhibition to speak to people in public forum, not one to one. One to one, I've been really good, I can tell you. But
okay.
public forum was a scare for me because, an ordinary guy, I suddenly would realize that do I even exist in this population? And writing was something that I was scared of. I worked with my coach when I shot out my first LinkedIn article. I could reach, I realized I was impacting some lives. And then I started writing and writing and writing. It's been about two years. There's not been
Mm.
a single day that I've not put something or a point of view on LinkedIn.
Right.
Now, interestingly, the stories which were doing well, and I used to get comments and reviews and feedback from people. I said, why don't I leave a legacy back to the world in form of a book? Because
Mm.
I've been very confident about these points. So I captured the best 51 stories that had an impact on my life, and
Mm.
I put it in a book. And most importantly, I converted them into an action book. So my book is
Mm.
not about you read and you forget.
Mm.
The fun is when you read, reflect upon, write a few questions after every chapter. Think about it. You'll start getting understanding and thinking about yourself completely from a different lens. So that's what I put it in my book called Extraordinary 51 Surprisingly Simpler Ways to Get Extraordinary Results in My Life. Because an
Mm.
ordinary guy like me, if I can get results, if I can fulfill my dreams, if I can do things and be in the 2% of the world population now, I believe every single one of us have an opportunity to get the best out of of our life. So that's broadly the inspiration behind the book and what one could find in the book.
Right. Awesome. Looking forward to reading the book. I don't agree with in any way that you're ordinary. You've got a phenomenally successful career. You've got 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. I've seen the kind of traction on your stories. I think you're making a huge impact. You're far from being ordinary. But I get your point, right? A lot of us sometimes feel, we tend to compare. Sharma ji ka beta is doing like that and all of that stuff, right? So in that context, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying, right? You don't really need to be a doctor, or you don't need to be something to be able to be extraordinary. Each one of us can be extraordinary in our own way. Awesome. That's a great start to this conversation, right? Let's get back to what you spoke about, employee engagement. You spoke about do I get to be myself, do I get to be my best, and do I get to be relevant and aligned to the company's organization. Now this is amazing, right? If you're able to achieve that, but how does a company really achieve that? how do you build an interview process to how do you build a nurturing process so that the employees, at least a large percentage of the employees, are able to be in that space so that they're well engaged.
I tell you the most important link in my experience. It is the managers. I when I started my work,
You've
when I
seen
started my
24 of
career,
them.
so yeah, I had 24 of them. So when I conceptually I had heard about engagement. I worked with great bunch of HR folks who would know a lot about engagement. They were learning, they were practicing. Uh, but the link, the most important link, one from my experience, when you see the most of the variance or the fluctuation used to happen every time my manager used to change. But when I started to look at the data, be it a Gallup survey or a Great Places to Work survey, or say the survey that we use through Culture Monkey, within the same organization, with everything being the same, how was it that different units or different people had different level of engagement? Same state, same business, two managers having different scores, right? And the guys who were doing well in certain areas had exactly the same resources that everybody had.
Right.
So I believe what Gallup says, that 70% of time it is managers. So that is the most important part. Now managers is where we need to enable, focus on, and ensure that they are the one who are carrying this part of the engagement. I had a similar, different kind of experience. When I joined a large group in a conglomerate, and I would speak to people, I used to hear this often. The management had said this. The management decided this. The management is saying this. And I asked somebody, who is management? Right? And every time people would look upon to my face, thinking that either I have asked a stupid question or I have asked a fundamental question that needed a lot of thinking through. In my experience, my manager is my management.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. It's not that only the CXOs are the management, right? For a person who's out right there on the field, his or her store manager or the cluster manager or the immediate manager is the face of the story. That's the connector between the organization and the individual. So manager is the most important place where organization should focus on. Look at organizations which have been able to do well in the digital world or in the post-COVID world, right? They continue to be the single biggest important factor which makes or breaks engagement. And I continue with that philosophy unless until I discover something else. Practices could be hundreds and thousands and millions, right? I used to study some best practices and just implement it in my organization. It would succeed or it would fail. Okay. But what I started, the second dimension I started to realize is, and this is for every HR person out there, have it specific to your organization. Just don't try to copy anything like what Shrikant said, Sharma ji ka beta. That works in life, that works in organization also. Just because 5 of companies or in the similar space are doing some best practices, just don't bring it and copy it. Every organization is an individual, right? So do things that matter, align it. Manager, as I said, however, continue to be the single biggest factor which I believe can make or break the engagement scores. And look at that score within the same organization. Why would it vary if everything is the same? You have the same infrastructure, same building, same manager, same competition, same fun event. Why would the score vary? That's one of the biggest dimensions.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, there are plenty of anecdotes and plenty of surveys that indicate that, employees stay or leave the organization because of their manager. And a lot of times the manager takes their team along with them to the next organization that they go to, right? I think that's a well-known point, but I think the way you said it, as far as I'm concerned, my manager is my management. That's that's kind of a very, very important point, and it's a great way to think about it. Who is this management, right? You don't really know, see, or care about them so much, but it's your manager who you report to. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's dive a little bit deep into that, and how do you empower managers to be great managers, and how do you hire great managers in the first place?
So, see, the great manager definition, again, there's no standard definition. It has to be contextual. Now, having worked within a tech product-led company, which is very, very new age, where the average age was 23, 24 when I joined, there people are looking at managers, which is more of a friend, a buddy, this bro, is what people are looking at. I worked with very tall order, regimented, sales-driven organizations, right, where managers have to deliver something else. So one, understand the context of the organization and look at who do you want to become as an organization, right? Then add those assessments in your way you assess. I would absolutely blatantly say that there is no standard definition of a great manager or a leader or a person. It doesn't happen. I think that's what is again typecasting people, saying that you have to be doctor, you have to be engineer, you have to be this, that. I think we have to get rid of it.
Right.
So one, understand what your organization is, define what you should be standing for, and then have an assessment. Defining an assessment is not the most difficult part, but clinging on and closing on these points, that who do you want to be, right? If I want to be a speaker, I need to connect with people who are good at speaking. If I need to be a doctor, I need to be in that community. So define what do you want to stand for as an organization, as a value proposition. Then create an assessment and also systems and processes which will reinforce those practices out there. So there's no standard checklist saying that these are the 5 qualities which makes great manager. No, I'll be BSing if I'm actually using that. But I realized again, strategy, situation, look at what matters to you. But yes, use good designs to ensure that those selections and filtering are done well.
Okay, awesome. I love it. You don't like typecasting. That's something which comes out pretty clear here. So let me ask you. Some of the most effective strategies or ideas or activities that you've seen being put into place to be able to help either employees engage better or to be able to help managers engage their employees better in any of your past organizations. Does something come to mind?
There's one that comes to my mind, which is perhaps one of the most powerful experience, and more so because it again changed the perspective for me. Now, having worked for a very in some of the best and the biggest of the brands and from the best of the people, there was this one organization where I was working with, and the role of HR, something was very clearly called out. In fact, let me put it differently. Every people initiative, every engagement initiative, every conversation, every communication was driven by the business leader.
Okay.
The kind of results I've seen there, right? In terms of I'm talking about a very basic set of operations team, ordinary team, not the best in terms of the pedigree or the classification, but the kind of results we were delivering from this business was absolutely unthinkable. We used to beat every single assumption that people had that you guys cannot do it or this is not doable. That business would go ahead and do it. And I was speaking to my business head one day because historically I've been hammered when attrition would increase, or I would hammered when engagement would go down. But this time he would come and say, this is going down. What do you think as an HR expert we should do to enhance it? I will drive it. You help me design it. That was magical for me. And that is the day my second belief formed up, saying that it is not HR's responsibility. We could be the designer. We have to be the advisor. We have to be the consultant, but we can't own it. We have to own it for our team, but we can't own it for the organization. The day business owns it, the day managers owns employees is where magic will happen. And that's one company where I've seen the kind of results. We had one of the lowest attrition. The kind of numbers we were doing were 10x of what people imagined. What specific activity that we used to do was, for this 3 months in a year, the entire team would take double the target and also go full hog on engagement activities. So every weekend there is a sports activity that is happening where clusters would pay together, and then there is a zone level match and there is a state level match. and then we would have national match. And once 2 day a week, we would go there from the central team. We would have 1 day of massive R&R event where
Mm.
everybody would come and connect. The power and the feeling was absolutely empowering. So we'll talk, reinforce the vision. We'll say what we have done. We'll call out the great things that people have done. We would 1,000, 2,000 people, few would come on stage, and we would recognize them for the performance and the recognition that they've done.
Right.
That and the next day was cricket, where invariably the central team, which never used to practice, would get rogered by the by the zonal or the cluster team, because the energy there was different, right? So we would have a full day match, engagement, having lunch together, having fun together. That movement, those 3 months were very powerful. Interestingly, the sales numbers used to be 2x during that period also. I had
Mm.
never seen that, because I assumed that if you're taking time for engagement or other
Yeah.
activities, your numbers would go down. But that's the moment I realized that it's in our head. If we see it conflicting, it will conflict.
Mm.
But if we see them complementing, it will, and that business continues to just do astronomical, give astronomical results to the things that they're doing. So that was my movement of understanding and demystifying something about engagement.
Awesome. Awesome. Love it. Love it. I think that is phenomenal. I can feel the energy just as you're saying it. And I can imagine the those 3 months what it would have looked like. And like what you said, right? It's all in our mind, ordinary or extraordinary. It's all in our mind. And whether it's complementing or it is competing for time is also in our mind. The whole idea of employee engagement activities is to be able to empower employees to be able to be more productive, right? Not to distract them from what they're already doing, right? Awesome. That's
And
that's
there's, sorry, a quick point on this. So about 30% of the, so there was qualifiers. Now people would qualify. I'm talking about people from places who probably wouldn't have ever taken a third air conditioned travel in their life.
mm,
We used to send them to international trips,
mm,
right? So
right,
this is how it used to go, and we used to earn it, right? Because people were doing 2x of the numbers.
right.
So what stopped us? And there was a time I remember 50% of people went abroad. That was an experience for them.
Right. Amazing. Awesome. I can imagine that. Super duper. So let's talk a little bit about now. Those were the 3 best months, right? But the last few months for a lot of businesses have been very, very challenging. You can crisis and pandemic and all of that stuff, right? So how do you handle employee engagement in those kind of crisis situations?
Okay, so I'll
Or how do
call
you
out
keep
Shrikant.
employees motivated? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
First thing, still trying to figure out some of the new variables. We have gone through a difficult time as an organization. Glad that we have come out of it, and it is because of, as a team, we have stood together. It was not easy. It was not easy. Do I have all the answers? Possibly no. But I saw a lot of pattern shifts, right? One, when COVID happened, when the crisis was on the mankind, I know I've seen multiple companies' data. Every company's engagement scores shot up, independent of no bonuses and salary increases and all. It shot up. You know why? Because the battle was something bigger. The battle was on
Mm,
the human race, rather than is my performance better than you or somebody else, or if your manager is
correct.
fair. The focus shifted on something far more fundamental life. So I
Mm,
saw a huge uptake in the scores
mm,
across in the initial parts. But once we started to accept this, and once they started to come in, I think that's where a lot of new variables started to come. And I'll tell you the biggest concern that I had as a manager, and I'll again give you an example of something that happened with me. So I
mm.
left home after my 10th.
Okay.
Uh, so suddenly I realized, and that's a time when phone connections were not easy. Forget video calls and all, and traveling home also was once or twice a year.
Mm,
My parents, especially my mother, when she would be on the call, she would be overtly worried. Are you eating well? I can't see you. Are you all okay? I'm able to speak to you only
yeah.
for a few minutes. Exactly something like this happened to us when we went work from home.
Mm,
When we see somebody, we can
mm.
feel things,
Yes.
right? I can feel that if somebody is upset or not happy, the mood, and it gives us a sense of control and being there together.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Now, what happened to my mother exactly was happening to me as a manager, or most of the managers that I assume, that you suddenly don't know what's going on with the individual, right?
Mm.
So I think this was a period when the maximum of the disengagement happened, right? Because
Mm.
we didn't know how to deal with it,
Mm.
right? What saved the organization was the trust. If there was trust between manager and team member, I think it
Yeah.
continued. But this is where I believe that, at least for us, a good technology solution came very, very handy.
Mm.
This is apart from managers playing their role.
Mm.
They are the people who actually played the most important role. In many places, they are the ones who did what they were actually supposed to do.
Mm.
Managers took charge of engagement during COVID. I can
Mm.
give it to you in writing for the organizations, right? And technology started to enable organizations and managers and people to get a theme and pulse of what's happening and take
Mm.
very, very specific action. So these two, again, manager empowerment, but mostly using technology in this time enabled
Mm.
at least us to get a sense of what's happening. And
Mm.
once you know these, you drive conversations, communication
Mm.
that at least help us survive. Of course,
Mm.
our aspiration is to move to level two and a level three and a level four one, with we coming back to in a better shape. But that's
Mm.
what has happened with us.
Right, right. Awesome. Very well said. So let's talk a little bit more about the technology aspect, which you said, right? So what can you give us one or two instances of what kind of technology should be used in these times, or the impact that you've seen of technology with some examples?
So I'll go to I'll share something which I personally believe about the future of tech, HR tech, or future of engagement.
Mm.
Going back to my experience with 13 different managers, right? Sorry, 24 different
24.
managers and 13. Yeah, I believe now, and this is where my HR practice and my coach both are coming together, is that the real flavor and the future and the test of engagement is in personalization.
Mm.
Shrikant needs something different because Shrikant is Shrikant.
Mm.
Ketan needs something different because Ketan is Ketan.
Right.
Look at one of the best of the managers. They are very, very personalized in their engagement. So what I believe in is that the entire engagement has to move towards personalization. You may
Mm.
need ESOPs, I may need training, or
Mm.
attending a program at NCR. I may need going scuba diving, right?
Mm.
The moment we start identifying this is where the world is going to change, and this is going to happen. And thanks to technology, technology will make personalization scalable. Is how I
Mm.
put it together. Look at what is happening to us as a customer when we log into the Amazons or the Flipkarts or
Yeah.
the Facebooks of the world. I get a feed which is basis my pattern and my behavior and what needs to be driven.
Correct.
This is where technology would take engagement to.
Mm.
That is where magic is going to happen, because then I am being who I am. I am doing my best every single day. And of course, alignment to the organization, what the organization will drive. But this is
Yeah.
what technology will do. It will make personalization scalable.
Mm.
This is the
Right.
future.
Awesome, awesome, and it suddenly makes so much sense. Personalization is the key, and I think we are in that age. So since we're speaking about that, right? Let's talk about how the employee expectations have changed in the last 10, 15 years, right? uh, I don't think anybody spoke about personalization. I mean, getting a job was the priority. I would think some 10 20 years back or something like that, right? So you've been in HR for 15 years. What are you seeing in the shift in the expectation that employees have?
A similar trend. So see, when I started my career, there were the idea was best practices and policies which will run across the organization.
Mm.
I like it or I don't like it, but most people liked it. It was
Mm.
supposed to be good and successful, and I think it was right because
Right.
it was an employer's market,
Mm.
right? And companies
It
were
was an
doing
employer
incredible
market.
work. All credit to companies, because that's how growth happens, right? So companies were
Yeah.
doing incredible work. A lot of best practices I used to study, get inspired. But the idea was that you have policies which cut across the organization.
Mm.
Then came the phase two, where segments started to get created, like saying that, okay, tech folks would need this, operating
Mm.
folks would, your customer service folks would need this. Then
Right.
we started segment of one where there was a level two of personalization, but still into segments.
Mm.
The third dimension, and we are at the cusp of that beginning, is personalization, where I am an individual, do what matters to me, and I'll do my best. Okay?
Mm.
I want Shrikant to be the best. I want Ketan to be doing the best. I want anybody to be doing his or her best, right? That's where magic is going to happen. That's where if all variables are firing, the organization
Mm.
will. So this is the shift that I see, and I anticipate where the future is going to be personalization.
Right. Awesome. Love the idea. Love the idea. So I think we're coming to pretty much the end. We have another 5 to 10 more minutes before we can wind up. So if you have any questions from the audience, now is a great time to put it out there, and we'll try to point it out to Ketan. In the meanwhile, I have a couple of questions of my own. We spoke about aligning. Am I being myself? Am I being my best? Am I aligned to what it is that I want to do? Right. If all of these meet well, then I presume that employee will kind of become a brand ambassador of that organization. Am I right? If it is, what steps can an organization take to consciously turn their employees into brand ambassadors? Have you seen something of that sort happening?
I have been a brand ambassador for most of the companies that I worked with, and I think why two one is I'm keeping my own part and the role aside, but for
Mm,
me at the core is about being human.
mm,
I think that's inevitable every time, and I've been fortunate to have worked with managers and brands where I've worked with the most humane people on this planet.
mm,
Absolutely, they've respected me for who I was. They always took care of me as a human being, and it was genuine. It was not saying that, oh, you're not well, okay, take rest, versus what, this happened to you, what can I do, can I know that if I was in a trouble, they will stand up for me. They'll
mm,
do whatever it takes to stand for me and take care of me. So that, and where did this confidence come from? This comes from the actions that the organizations took. I saw
mm,
examples when the company took stands on protecting and taking care of employees, right?
mm,
That's the inspiration and the confidence that I got, saying that if in difficult times, this is not a company, this is not a manager who leaves hands and goes away. That
mm,
to me is the most important part. There's a book called uh, "What You Do Is Who You Are" by somebody called Ben Horowitz.
okay.
Grab that book. It is one of the best books when it talks about, and the probably the most straightforward book I've read about culture. It's about
Okay.
our actions determine who we are. That's it.
Mm,
Nothing else matters. Culture is nothing but every single act that you do as leaders, as your organization, people read, interpret, and that's actually carries forward. So if you want brand ambassadors, walk the talk, make sure that people experience what you promise. If there is
mm,
trust, if there is that faith saying that I will stand for you,
mm.
whatever may come across. I think that you have people who are evangelists and they'll go and talk about the organization throughout my life. I've all my four organizations have been phenomenal. All my managers have been phenomenal. So I give it to them for that.
Awesome. Love it. There's a question here from Sandhya. She's been pretty active on the chat here. She says, really loving the session, Ketan. Wanted to know who is your role model behind your success?
If there's one, it would have been easy. But different dimensions of life had different impacts.
Mm.
I had many people that I could name
You spoke
off,
about your
and
uncle.
I spoke about my uncle. I had many bosses who have, my book is full of stories of inspirations and experience from many of, and all of them got the copy of the book because a lot of their experiences are there. But I'll
Mm,
tell you something different here. I'll not talk about role model, but I'll talk about who inspires me the most or what inspires me the most. For me, that is my dreams.
mm,
What if,
mm,
and that's what I say, ordinary guy with extraordinary dreams. My dreams have given me that hope, that belief, that faith, that power, that energy to get up every single day and do something which is a step ahead. Now that
mm,
inspires me. This is the culmination of a lot of people that I've worked with. I don't have one
mm,
role model.
mm.
I have many coaches. But what
Right.
inspires me every single day is my dreams. Please dream. Have a lot of dreams, crazy dreams. Give your best shot. Happening, not happening, I don't know. I think COVID taught us that whoever you are, whatever you are, something can come in and just wipe everything away. But have the dream, live it to the fullest. That's the only thing I would say here. Role models, I have many. My book would have a lot of them. I haven't named them, but you will realize that the kind of people I've been fortunate to have worked with.
Awesome. Love it. So dream, keep dreaming, and dream bigger the dream, the better it is. Right.
Oh yes.
So I think we'll take one last question before we wind up. What, according to you, Ketan, are the current remote working challenges with respect to employee engagement, and to be able to, like you made a point earlier, right? You said when you're present with that person, it's much easier to kind of gauge what's going on, and you just know in the presence, right? But when there's a distance, when somebody is working remotely, now everything is happening remotely, right? You're onboarding new employees remotely, existing people are performing remotely, and people are quitting even remotely, right? So what are the challenges, and what are the top challenges, and how do you overcome them?
The first challenge would be, how do you build that thread of trust?
Hmm.
Every engagement model talks about something fundamental is about trust, and that's the core to existence of human life also, right? Our societies have thrived on the concept of trust. How do you speed up the process of trust building? It will get built, right? But in an offline world or a physical world, you can see a lot of actions. You can feel things which will tell you, okay, what the culture is about, right? That the feeling of what this workplace is about, or the smell of the workplace that we used to talk about, that suddenly is missing,
Hmm.
right? The water cooler conversations where you would hear about some great things and some not so great things are the moments which are missing. And that's where, when I said you are, what you do is who you are.
Hmm.
Now, this act, you're not able to see and experience. What it does is it delays the process of understanding and translating that elements of culture into what people should experience.
Hmm.
So that, I believe, is the biggest challenge. Have we been able to solve for it? No. But uh, communication, and when I say communication, technology has come as one of the biggest boon in terms of how do you create that connect.
Hmm.
Second, how do you also create a optical connect with people? Now, when I enter into an office, I have a color and a brand and a theme, and there is a vibe of the place. How do I take it to, or send it back to the homes of employees? What cues do I create which keeps them connected, right? So these are the two big ones which I believe have to be solved for.
Hmm.
Trust will get solved for, just that the process may be different. It is longer right now,
Right.
right? You need to handhold more. You need to over communicate, meet, send, talk to people. But trust and this the connect, or the actions translating into an experience are the two of the biggest things I believe are the struggles. We are still struggling and trying to figure out what we could do, but I'm
Right.
sure there are a lot of people who are trying to solve for that problem.
Right. Awesome. It's been phenomenal speaking to you, Ketan. This has been very, very enlightening. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Hope you had a good time too. And I want to thank you and thank all the audience for coming over and sparing 45 minutes of your time to be here. I really hope that it was worth your time. Hope you had a good time, Ketan.
I had. Thank you so much, Shrikant. Thank you so much, everybody, for giving me your time on Dashara Day. Have a phenomenal weekend. Enjoy, live your life to the fullest, and I hope to see you soon sometime. Thank you so much,
Keep
Shrikant, for this
dreaming.
opportunity.
Keep dreaming. I'm
Keep
going to
dreaming.
order
Dream big.
your book is already on its way, and I'm going to add the other book that you mentioned to my list very soon. See you guys. Have a fantastic weekend and happy Dasara once again. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.